Aloha mai kako. Welcome to Makai, 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 the podcast with two Kanaka Maoli across the Pacific Ocean in the Pacific Northwest.
Aloha, my name is Kapiolani Lee.
And aloha, my name is Daphne Kauahi'ilani Jenkins, and we're so happy you're here. Hi, Kapiolani. So, why don't we tell everyone how this all started and why we decided to do this podcast?
I would love to. So I met you, Daphne, a few months ago, at a community art exhibition installation,
Mm,
and you were part of a group of creative makers around food, that were sharing different kinds of snacks related to local history here in Portland.
that's right, story
So
snacks.
yeah, story snack. And so I stopped by and it was a really wonderful array of different snacks and different stories. And you had butter mochi, one of my favorite snacks,
Hmm.
with kulolo, sorry, kulolo inside, my
Yes.
all-time favorite snack. And then you also were sharing mo'olelo about early Hawaiians in Oregon. And so I knew from having that delicious butter mochi with the kololo inside
Mm.
that we needed to be friends. And
Oh.
so we hung out and we started talking, and then we both realized that we love history and we
Mhm.
love learning more about Native Hawaiian history here in Oregon, but also everywhere. And we have a lot of connection and love for our Pacific Islander relatives. So I think this podcast is a wonderful way to explore all of that and delve in deeper and, I think really get to the heart of, what our experience and what our stories are here.
Ah, I love that, Kapiolani. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I remember story snacks fondly. I also remember that day I had sourced some different flowers and I made a bunch of lei kui, to try to give that. If I had a Shopee shop, I would have butter mochi and lei, almost like, the Chinatown of my dreams. Since this particular event was to honor Old Town Portland, which has a history that people should check out. And then also we've hung out, come to the Old Town Museum, and then we've also gone to the Oregon Historical Society together to nerd out and find history to unearth some history from Kanaka Maoli or Native Hawaiians here in the Pacific Northwest. For me, I never knew the history of Native Hawaiians. It wasn't something I learned growing up on Oahu about the Native Hawaiians that had traveled and worked up and down this west coast of the continent. So it was really, it was really a treasure to find evidence of our, our community being here when it feels so far from home. But
Mhm.
even finding out some made home here. So I'm really excited to keep nerding out. And like you said, I have a love for history, but I also have a deep love for context. And I think we have an important context for Kanaka Maoli and our homelands and the islands, but what's happening, the diaspora is real. And so here we are in the diaspora holding space for stories from the diaspora too.
And I think uncovering those stories that you mentioned of Hawaiians who made their home here, taking all those fragments and starting to piece together that bigger picture is what will connect us more deeply with Hawaii, um, and being able to share that information and find those connections. I think that is what will help us keep building that community between, different kinds of Hawaiians in diaspora. So you and I are different. I was born and raised in Seattle, and you were born and raised in Kaneohe, or
Ah, yeah, I was born in Honolulu, but then raised between Kaneohe and Pauoa, where my maternal grandparents were. So yeah, like let's tell folks where we're from. Let's give a little intro. Shall we introduce ourselves?
yeah. So my name is Kapiolani, again, and I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Um, my parents met in the Air Force in Wyoming, of all places. And my mom is from a large Irish Catholic family in Massachusetts, and my dad is from Hawaii. And I am Kanaka Maoli through both of my paternal grandparents. My grandmother is Native Hawaiian and Norwegian with a little bit of German from Waiahu, Maui. And my grandfather was Native Hawaiian and Chinese from Puna on the Big Island. And
Mm.
so they met on Oahu. They actually met working at the Hawaiian Homes Commission when it first opened
Wow.
and made their home on Oahu. And my dad and his brother grew up in uh, Kaimuki or Kaimuki. Um, and Yeah, I born and raised in Seattle, but I lived for a short period in Waiahu, Maui, and also for about 14 years in San Francisco, and then came back up here to the Pacific Northwest and settled in Hillsborough, which is just outside of Portland. And Hillsborough is the original land of the Tualatin people.
Thank you, Kapiolani. You know what's funny? I don't know if we've talked about this or if we have. Here it is again. But my dad grew up in Kaimuki. So I wonder if he knows your dad and fam. We
You
should
know
we
what?
should
I'll ask my uncle.
be like Jenkins. Do you know the
Yeah.
Jenkins family? They went to St. Louis. The boys went to St. Louis High School and the girls went to Sacred Hearts Catholic family. Um, so let me see. My name is Daphne Kauahi'ilani Jenkins. Hi, everyone. I was born and raised on Oahu. Was born in Honolulu and raised between Kaneohe. My parents had a home there, and then Pauoa, where my maternal grandparents live. And I am Kanaka Maoli on my dad's mom, so my paternal grandmother's side, can trace her family to upcountry Maui. Kokomo is where my great grandfather, Chinese, used to work in a plantation setting, but then became a butcher and owned his own butcher shop. So did pretty well there in Kokomo, Maui. And then he married Aomoi, or my great grandmother, and she hailed from Lapahoehoe on Hawaii Island, where she was of Chinese and Hawaiian descent as well. I think her mom was Kanaka. And then on my mom's side, her father has Kanaka Maoli roots that go back to Lahaina. And that one's, it's our last name, her maiden name is Lumlung. So we did have some relatives that we aren't very close to, but related to, who perished in the Lahaina fire. So thinking of them, thinking of hopefully their spirits are free. But so I have two lineages. One traced back to Lapahoehoe on Hawaii Island, and then one to Lahaina, Maui. And I'm not sure. I would love to find out more, but it's so difficult to trace that side. Um, but that's me. That's a little bit of context about me. And I grew up on Oahu, and then I came over to Turtle Island, or the continent, and I to go to college. And then from that time, I've sort of been here. I want to say trapped, but I have choice, I think. I was trying to earn and be educated, and then I kept falling in love with people, and so I ended up here, and staying here. Yeah. I think we're here to bring a little more nuance and complexity to things. I also don't necessarily think we're right or wrong. I think we're just curious and interested. And that's what I love about our podcast.
I agree. I think that's the starting point for a deeper or better understanding of where we are. Um, I want to share my quote from Samuel Kamakaua, who's a 19th century Kanaka Maoli historian. And I think it's a really great prompt for recentering ourselves and sort of asking these questions from a Kanaka Maoli point of view. So
Mm.
um, he wrote, "You foreigners regard the wind, the rain, the land, and sea as things to make money with. but we look upon them as loving friends with whom we share the universe.
Mm,
And I feel like that's a great way to frame how we look at Hawaiian diaspora,
mm,
how we frame the things that Hawaiians are experiencing back home, how we frame the things that Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders are doing to build different futures for themselves. Um, it feels like new voyages since we all come from, this amazing voyaging heritage that it's a new voyage or voyages that we're making into um places unknown.
I love that, PO. And that's just brings us full circle back to our podcast name because our ancestors voyaged Makai, Makai, Makai. And that is a quote that I'm pulling from Kathleen Tiao's novel Makai. It was like a last line or one of the lines at the end of a chapter that just stood out to me. Um, that feeling of leaving Hawaii while listening to Honolulu City Lights and in your phone with your heads and bawling, and then going Makai, Makai, Makai towards the ocean, towards the ocean, towards the ocean away. But also, it is how you return home too. We'd have to,
Mhm.
from here to back to Hawaii, you'd have to go Makai, Makai, Makai across the Pacific.